This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Bud. Been on the road Bud. I don't know if that's the right way. Miles Bud.
Miles Bud. Bouncing around Bud.
And then we have Mikey here, Leprechaun Mike. We are here. It's the day after St. Patrick's Day. And
well, yeah, it is. Yeah, but when this
rolls out, it will be the day after St. Patrick's Day. You are in your green. You're greened up. You're in the green. I'm in the blue. I'm not even working through. I'm like just trying to figure out what I'm doing for dinner tonight after getting off the plane.
We have corned beef. We got corned beef and cabbage on the stove as we speak right now. It's St. Patrick's Day at the Hall House. It is a big freaking deal. Always has been, because my daughter does Irish dancing.
How big of a deal is it, Mikey?
It's a big deal. It's like the Super Bowl for us, right? She does Irish dancing. She started Irish dancing when she was 4. She's 13 now. One of my really good buddies, his wife is straight from Ireland. He actually met her on vacation there. So she heads up our Irish society. So all of our friends, all of our family, all come in town this weekend. Today, my daughter's been out dancing around the community all day. She blows off school and they put on assemblies for schools, and they go to like old folks home and dance for them. And then tomorrow is the parade. Big deal in Kalamazoo, Michigan, is the parade downtown. And then they have a big Irish party afterwards called a hoolie. And then the girls dance at that all day. And then we all come back here for some cheers. So
love it. That is awesome. Yeah. Now, she does the full dance in the full garb, right?
She does. Yeah. Yeah. They kind of, that big sparkly dress that you see them where they have to earn that. So she had to dance. This is her second dress. So she got it probably when she was 9 or 10. So she danced for 5 years to earn it.
Do we have a video?
We do.
You must have a video of this, I would imagine.
Let's watch the video. This is from today at one of the schools here in town. That's her in the middle in the blue dress, light blue dress.
That is quite a get up.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're heavy. Those dresses are heavy, and I won't even talk about the cost of them. And, they only get a couple of years out of them, because at this age, all they do is grow. But yeah, my legs hurt just from watching her do this, all day long, over and over and over again. And I can't imagine that she's got to jump back up and do it all day again tomorrow. So that's the good thing about Irish dance. People always say, "Oh, your daughter does Irish dance." That's kind of neat. I never heard of it. I go, yeah, but while you're locked in auditoriums for ballet recitals, I'm usually at an Irish festival or at a bar. Like tomorrow's at a bar all day long. I can have a beer. I'm never really locked in an auditorium. So it's for all the listeners out there, if you have young daughters, look into Irish dance. Dads can always have a beer when they're performing.
No dancing at the dance recitals suck. They're so slow. They take forever. They're no fun.
Yeah.
And Irish dancing over dance recitals, 100%. Yep. Well, I was in the market this week. I was in Southern Illinois. I don't know if I have ever seen beer stacked on top of the coolers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Not very shoppable, but we have the 2 side stacks down there. So definitely drawing some attention. Now, were those cases full, or are those like repack empty cardboard?
I think they're full.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's impactful. Look at how tall that thing is. See, that's awesome.
And every single one of them has a topper on top of it as well. Like it's locked in and loaded for sure.
Yeah. Good GP items to have out too.
Great GP items. And there's Harvest Market and Country Market. And each one of them you'll see in the back up here has like this upstairs coffee shop kind of a thing. Pretty cool. Nice. It's like old school Felposh, Mike.
Yeah.
With a coffee shop and like the new, 2025 vibe of it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's kind of like the Martins, Indiana area. They have Martins. Those are pretty cool too, like that. The coffee shops. And I don't think they get behind their beer programming as much as what we just saw there.
No, not one bit. Well, Mikey, we are into the mix on a bunch of stuff going on. You have been working on with some clients around finished product loss and FPL, as we affectionately call it. So that is your close to code, out of code, breakage, and everything else that's going on in the world. And this is your kind of wheelhouse. You're the expert as a former operations manager, guy who taught me how to drive a forklift. That's why I don't drive one anymore. But that's
Your
also not
license
your
has been
fault.
revoked.
That's also not your fault. It's more my fault than it is anything else. So, Mikey, tell the crew what finished product loss is and just what it's all about. Just from let's just start with like tracking and why we care, particularly from like an ownership cost structure side. Because to me, it's all the products we sell are going to be perishable in one way or another. And it's something that the business has to pay for. So, what are you doing to minimize them as much as possible?
Like a cost of doing business, right? Is
Yes.
kind of how you
Mm-hmm.
chalk it up. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And I think a lot of people feel like that, to where it's just, it's one of those things. It's cost of doing business, just like we have to pay our labor and everything else. Which I guess essentially a portion of it is, but when it's not tracked and it's not being paid attention to, it's a cost that can get out of control real quickly. And here we are in March, right? The height of FPL season, which is good timing for this episode. I think that's why I've had so many meetings lately on the topic with FPL, because we're coming out of winter months, right? We're seeing those items that were sold in late fall, early winter, just not turning.
Trying to hit a
And
number.
trying to
Q4.
hit a number by the end of the year. We're 3 months after the end of the year. So, right, we're shoving products and accounts that just didn't sell through to try to hit a number. So, as we look at March and our numbers are high, if you're tracking it, it is the highest, February, March, April, about the highest you're going to see your FPL throughout the year, with June, July, August really being the lowest, because let's face it, not picking up a whole lot during those months. We're selling through it. But yeah, back to your question. I think that, for the majority of people listening to this, already doing a good job tracking, monitoring, right, and putting a number on FPL, finished product loss. And with finished product loss, mostly talking about out of code. You're close to code too, right? Because we do have some loss there, and breakage. And then there's that just loss, right? Whether it's been stolen, right, theft, or just a general write-off. We don't know where it went. It's just not accounted for. Shrinkage for when we're reconciling inventory. But if we're not tracking those, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on. If there's a problem, what is the problem? Where's the root of the problem, right? So, and I think we've learned lately a lot of distributors. I want to say a lot, but some are using just like a bucket system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where everything falls into one bucket. Maybe it's a spreadsheet that's being tracked, but it all comes back to the warehouse one way or another, with really no reason of why it came back. It just came back, gets to the warehouse, lands there. Somebody at the warehouse sorts it out. If it's broken, it goes in the breaker pile. If it's out of code, it goes to the out of code pile. And then just kind of written off as a lump sum, basically as a loss. So I think that's kind of what landed us here at our conversation today, is just the importance of putting some accountability, some tracking, and some numbers behind that product. Because if we don't track it, we really don't know if there's a problem or how deep the problem goes.
Let's come back to accountability in a minute, but let's go right into like the core ones and how reason codes come to life. So first, is it in the trade or is it in the warehouse? Because there's probably two separate sections, or you should be tracking it both ways. In the trade, there's out of code, there's also close to code, and there's also breakage that are really kind of in the wholesaler's control in some way, or the rep's control in some way, shape, or form. You make an argument that breakage isn't in the control of the rep, but also it's a cost that if we're just picking up the breakage, like, and we're not getting anything for it, which I'm sure we'll get into, either or it's illegal, because in some states it's illegal too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to manage that. But what are the reason codes you see people using that makes sense to use for trade?
Yeah, absolutely. Breakage, close to code, out of code are the three core that we need for the trade. But we also need a way to return good beer too, with a reason, right? Not just a full credit, but if it's coming back and if it's a negative transaction, if you live in a state where you're allowed to have a negative transaction, then you can tie a code to it. Why is that beer coming back? Was it a reset that got discontinued? Was it oversold? Was it a display that just didn't sell through that we thought, but hey, this product still has enough code on it or enough shelf life on it to get it back to the warehouse and get it somewhere else that's going to sell through in a reasonable time. So having that return code for good beer that's closely monitored, right? Because we don't want anything coming back that's close code or out of code in there as well. But also like an order refused. We see that a lot, right? I see the transaction of void a lot. I don't really like the void because why are we voiding an order? I guess is the question, right? But did the customer refuse it? Were they closed? Couldn't deliver for some odd reason? Did it burn down before you got there to deliver? So, which we've seen. But yeah, having some sort of return for that. Is good. We've covered this before, but I'm a firm believer. We're both firm believers in just having tight codes, not having a whole heck of a lot of codes. But we also need to make sure that and I think in this day and age, it's pretty important too with our suppliers and some of the push that we're getting, and maybe some fire sales that we have to get rid of products that we're long on to have some sort of safety net for those products of how they can come back, right? There's been a couple products in the market lately that were just, I don't know if they were over ordered, over pushed on us by suppliers, but we had an abundance of inventory in the warehouse and in the trade. Not really the rep's fault on a lot of those, right? And a lot of clients are like, hey, this is not going to go against FPL. Get it out there. What can sell? Let's get it back in. What can't, right? And so having like a safety net code too, but also closely monitored. And as far as trade goes, I mean, in my humble opinion, that's probably the most that you should have.
Yeah.
Out. So, I mean, that covers all the bases too, right? And you're also monitoring, and I think that's the back end of it too, is where we're monitoring those codes to make sure that it's not being abused.
If you put too many in there, there's an opportunity for abuse for sure. And then at the end of the day, you're also going to lose visibility. You think you're going to gain it, but then people get confused on what you should or shouldn't use the codes and how they should or shouldn't be used. And for me, the other piece of this that a lot of clients are struggling with or trying to find it, particularly new clients we're onboarding, is okay, I've got my reason codes tightened up. How do I make sure they're applied as design? So, with your operational background, Mikey, and it comes to accountability, let's just talk about accountability of that they're being applied properly. What are the best practices to make sure that when the product shows back up at the back door of the warehouse and somebody is met with a check-in process to confirm returns for bottles and cans if you're in a deposit state, empty kegs, pallets, and then also all of your reason code returns, breakage, out of date, and close to code product for the day, and any voids or rejected orders too to go back in inventory. So what's that
Yeah.
clean check-in process look like?
Yeah, because even if you're deposit state or not, you have product on the truck coming back. And man, there's nothing like an empty can bay, is there? The smell of an empty, just all those empty cans coming back.
I mean, we had to put double. What did we do? We did like double aluminum walls on the bottom of them because they would just get rotted out over time.
Yeah, our trailers had what was called a can bay or can hopper in the very back, and that's where you put all the cans, the bags full of cans, and yeah, you had to spray that sucker out every day. Beautiful job. But yeah, so and I've had this conversation a lot lately with a few clients that have been on VXP for a long time and some new clients too, right? What is your process? What are some best practices? What's going on? And with those chats, really just landed at if there's product coming back from the account, it really falls on the rep, right? I mean, that's kind of, and that's as a rep listening to this, that's what you want to happen too, because you don't want a driver walking in your account and seeing something and picking it up and having the power be in their hands to be able to pick up anything, right? I mean, I think back to Atlas, and there's a lot of clients that do it this way too, where the rep actually puts in the credit, makes the credit invoice a separate invoice, not on the order invoice, but goes into the system, makes a separate invoice just for the credits, puts in the negative quantities if it's legal in your state of what is being picked up. If it's not legal in your state, the negative quantities go on there along with the positive quantities of what you're swapping it with, right? If you're in a swap state, but at least it's on a separate transaction. It's on a separate invoice. And then that rep was in charge of saying, this is what I want picked up here. It's in a pile off to the side, outside of the cooler, right? Or wherever it needs to be. And we also really want to encourage to put a note on it too. What is it? If I have 5 cases coming back, 3 are out of code and 2 are breakage or close to code, I want to make sure those are going back to the appropriate buckets. When you're putting in the reason codes as a rep, you're putting them in, but now the driver doesn't know which is which, right? So a nice note on there helps the driver, puts it in their bays coming back. Maybe they have a pallet for out of code, a pallet for breakage, a pallet for close to code, and then their good beer. here I am pretending there's so much room on our trucks. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we can make some of that room. But then the accountability really back at the warehouse is that check-in process, right? Whether it's your warehouse team lead, your warehouse supervisor, whoever is in charge at the end of the day when the trucks are coming back, that falls on them to make sure that what the product is actually what it's being coded, and that's exactly where it's going in the warehouse to its appropriate spot. And I've heard clients doing it multiple ways as far as there are ways to get the reason codes right on that end of day checkout printout that the driver has, right? It's a little tricky with VIP and Encompass, but we can get those reason codes right on those transactions that the driver prints out. So when we check in the truck, all right, we have 5 cases of this, it's out of code. We have 3 cases of this, it's breakage, however it shakes out, right? But I also have some clients that actually just take the handheld right from the driver before they end their day, and they can have all of those transactions, those negative transactions, right in the handheld. That way, if something's coded improperly, because we're checking not just the note and how it's coded, but is it truly out of code? Is it truly close to code? Is it truly good beer,
Yeah.
right? And then they can actually change those transactional codes right then and there in the driver's handheld before they end their day. And then that product goes right from that truck right to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
You're out of code pile, you're close to code pile, and then obviously good beer goes right back into the CEW.
I think this is a good point to make, that no matter how good the technology is or the technical process to track all of this, for this to be done well, there still is a human element of this at the
Yeah.
back door. Like, and I feel like there's a lot of people that have said, hey, we just need to build a technical wall around this. And you solve most of the drama or challenges around the technical side, but putting it actually back in the hands of a human to do final judge and juryship on this is what the final information says, and hold the rep accountable to doing it right, then you're just going to always have a human doing that, and it makes sense, and it really doesn't take that long either, right, Mike?
No, it really doesn't. I mean, for the results that you're getting for the 5 to 10 minutes per truck, possibly at tops. I mean, we're not. Yeah, we're all in the same industry. We deal with a perishable product, so we do have items that go out of code. So it's not the end of the world when items are coming back. But yeah, that check-in process probably 5 to 10 minutes.
And if we're talking
May,
about like a 5 to 10 minutes over, we see clients anywhere between mid 5 digit costs on an annualized basis to, you know, mid high 6 figures, because it's all scale relative. A lot of people keep track of their FPL by cents per case, but it's all scale relative. And I really haven't seen a client that the scale relativity is like, it's not worth doing the detail tracking. There's always something relevant to doing the detail tracking and getting the results that you want to get to. So adjusting them, managing them, and following along. How do you get around like drivers? And this is another accountability piece, like actively fighting the sales team around picking up stuff potentially.
as far as not wanting to pick
Yeah.
up things,
Mm-hmm.
we had that. Yeah, we would have a lot of drivers that would come in and have their own opinion of the accounts and the products that they were picking up, right? And it's just one of those things that they just chirp in the background for the most part about. But
Those
I mean,
divas.
at the end, a little deep. It's a good thing there's no drivers on this listening to this. But
You're still a
the,
diva.
at the yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, it is part of the job. Unfortunately, it's not always just cases in, but there's going to be times that it's cases out too. It's just part of the nature. It's the nature of the industry. It's the nature of the beast. So yeah, so fighting back, or not fighting back, but uh, listen to the drivers too, because sometimes they do make a good point. Why am I continuously picking up all of this same product at this same account? I've talked to the sales rep. I said, slow down your ordering. You're ordering too much because I'm picking it up constantly, right? We've had those conversations. So in most cases, yeah, listen to them, see what they're saying. Are they just whining to whine because they don't want to pick up the cases, or do they have a legitimate point that needs to be addressed as well?
Yeah. Somebody needs to be kind of the accountability master around this. Like, who's the go to person to say, hey, this stuff isn't getting picked up? Who's the go to person to kind of raise their hand from an operations and driver side, like, hey, this is continuing to happen. And if you don't have clean data, you'll continue to see this happen over and over again as well, too. And there is going to be a challenge with clean data, because we didn't do it, and I don't know of any client that is doing it or any other wholesaler that's doing it, picking up partial cases. So, you know, you got to make a full case in some way, and that case might have multiple things in it. And then you got to pick a lane on what you're actually going to say you're going to return it for, or create the value of what you're going to say you were going to return it for as well. So
Yeah.
there's enough gray market in returning finished product loss already that we don't want to make it any more complicated with too many reason codes, not an audit process at the back door, and not a way to track and make sure the human element is working too.
Yeah, I do. I do know one distributor. They're not clients of ours, so they might not be listening to this, but I do know one distributor that picks up unit by unit.
I know what you're talking about.
What
They're crazy.
whether it's out of code or whether it's breakage. But yeah, it's unit by unit. You can pick up one can, but also a strict policy of if we didn't break it or our, the rep, merchandiser, driver didn't break it, we're not picking it up. But as far as out of code, yeah, not waiting for a full case to come back out of code and being able to credit unit by unit. That leads me to another good point too. Where what do we if we need to grab something off the shelf that's a little slow to make that full case, which we did a lot, right? Maybe I have 12 units of something that's out of code. I need to get it out of the account. Boss man's coming through. I don't want to see this or her to see this. I need to get this out. I have this 12 pack, same price structure, but it's good. It has some life on it. I just want to get it out of here because I don't think it's going to sell through in time and make that full case. Now I called that a good case. Well, it's a 12 pack, but it's good. Technically, it's not good. Right? Good beer needs to go from the truck to the CEW right back on the truck. That's a good case of beer. Yes, technically half of that case is good, but it's not saleable. So at least for us, that was called breakage. You come back in and you sort those out because it couldn't go right back in inventory. If it's not going back in inventory, it's technically not good beer.
Yep.
And that's really going to throw off your inventory levels for sure.
We're talking about sales rep accountability. So classic reason codes for sales rep accountability, and this is the governor element of what we like to talk about with clients, is out of code. Really easy to understand that. Like, hey, wrong product, wrong place, poor rotation practices, too much product, like just poor inventory management practices. A lot of things that happen with auto code are well in the reps control on a regular basis. So that's pretty simple. The next one that a ton of our clients, I would say 95, 97% of our clients are tracking too, is the close to code, the churn of the products that are coming in and out. Those are the things that are great. We still have some life left on it. It's going to come back to the warehouse in sellable condition, and it's going to get resold back out to somewhere else that hopefully can find its way into a consumer's shopping cart before it actually goes out of date. That close to code, a lot of reps are asking, like, why would we track close to code? And I'll give you my 2 cents on it first, because it was something that we never mathematically accounted for on the P&L, and I don't see anybody mathematically accounting for it on the P&L of a wholesaler at all, because it is a hidden cost. And what does that hidden cost look like? We spend all our money sending the distributors, sales reps to the store. We spend all of our money sending that truck to the store by picking the case, putting it on the truck, shipping it out, and actually delivering it. And anytime we have to do a reverse logistics effort where we're going to bring that case back and we're going to re-warehouse it and we're going to send it back out, we went from the whatever it is, 10 touches on the way out to the store, and we've added 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 additional touches to that, increasing the amount of times you touch that product by, I mean, we looked at the whole value chain of start to finish when you're receiving to then shipping it out. 40%, 30% more touches just by having that close to code product come back. So having that financial metric in there is really important around understanding the churn, because if you can lower your churn, there's a hidden cost in all of that as well that is buried through your warehousing costs, your labor costs in the warehouse, your driver costs on your driver time and your driver warehouse, and all this other kind of stuff that happens that's kind of below the sub details here.
Yeah, absolutely. The close to code is something I get asked about a lot from reps out in the market. Just why are we monitoring, and why is close to code going towards FPL? But yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a lot of costs associated with it, and in some instances, I won't say all. In some instances, maybe it was due to over ordering, um, you know, or some other reason behind why did the product go out of code, and especially when we're tracking it too. Now we can look for patterns, especially as a sales rep. If I'm noticing patterns, right, this is consistently getting close to code, then that's when I really look at what's the quantity I'm bringing in, and is it the right package for this account, because it possibly is not. So yeah, good reasons to track all of those and put dollars behind them.
Well, a ton of clients are tracking this stuff in terms of like tracking it to get to their P&L so they can look at it right way on their P&L, but they haven't ever used it. Tracking it and using it are two different things. And starting to use it is the first component of solving the ultimate problem. That's one of the values that VXP can bring to the sales team and to the operation. 50/50 on breakage. We got a small group of clients that actually have breakage tied. Some clients in the behavioral side tie breakage to the reps because they're not legally supposed to be using it. So why would
Mm-hmm.
we be putting that as a code?
Mm-hmm.
There oftentimes needs to be a breakage because we are liable to break something as a vendor in the account, and us, the drivers, or the sales reps as well.
Mike, more
And
times than none. I
well,
was I was notorious for glass. Do not put me in charge of handling glass.
anytime. I dropped a whole case of 40s once. I was one handing it around for some reason, and I was like, we were doing holiday. Yeah, it was holiday merchandise with my now brother-in-law Paul. Well, we were both in college, and it was we were being smart asses, and we were tossing 40s of Cobra in the back of Main Street Market, bro.
Oh yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yeah.
And
They go ahead.
the handle busted and just it levitated in midair right between
Floated.
us, and then just went bang.
Oh, those make a good pop too. They have a nice deep pop when those hit the floor solid.
Solid as a rock. And
Oh,
like, I mean, the store's a mess already, so it wasn't that
yeah. They
difficult to
probably
kind
cleaned
of
the
like
floor for them.
cover it up. I wouldn't say what we did was clean it up. It was more of like cover it up.
Probably clean a spot on the floor.
It could have been. It was somewhere between let's just put some newspaper over it and leave it alone and not say anything, and like, hey, where's the mop at?
Yeah, they don't have one. Well, that's how I got my nickname. I mean, you come every Monday or every Tuesday, you have a new nickname for me. Back in our reset days, my nickname was Moppin' Mike, and I was notorious. An hour into the reset, because there's a couple of representatives from all the different distributors there, and they would see me walk into the back room, and they would all start laughing. They're like, "Mike's going to find the mop." Every time, every time.
Did that happen regularly all the time?
Oh yeah, Hargrave always called me, and Tommy, they call me Mop and Mike. How long is it going to take Mike to drop something today?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was
That's
always
awesome.
glass, never cans.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. And then we haven't touched on warehouse reason codes, but you need the same kind of detail on warehouse reason codes. You've got people, distributors have multiple people that are involved with like acquiring product, how much inventory they should or shouldn't have. Oftentimes they have one person tied, one or maybe even a couple people, if you have multiple locations, tied to their largest supplier partners. And then they've got brand managers tied potentially, is what we're seeing now. A lot of brand managers are tied to product supply for those craft and smaller suppliers. So
Yeah,
having a governor on them and their method, and I like to use that term because sales folks, we are designed to be excited and to want to exceed expectations or say that we can sell this to a level of XYZ. And you need to have some kind of a governor process to protect them from making over exuberant decisions and getting
yeah,
very excited and getting out over their skis, which ultimately can turn into warehouse FPL drama as well.
absolutely. There's more benefits too, just from the operations side, from when I was in operations, and from doing our forecasting too. Right, tracking FBL within the warehouse has many benefits. One of them too, helping us reorder. Um, we're moving into a forecasting model with some of our larger suppliers now with limited order windows instead of just forecasts, where we have 1 or 2 shots, 3 shots a year to order this product. um and our smaller suppliers, that's basically how it is, right? We're just ordering, we're not really forecasting our sales, we're creating an order, that's what we get. So monitoring, tracking, and even back in the day when I was doing our forecast and keeping a spreadsheet going of just, I mean, because you could also pull in your out accounting system, but all right, this order window, this is what we ordered. We had X amount of cases come back close to code. We had X amount of cases go out of code in the trade. I had X amount of cases go out of code in the warehouse, right? Next time that order window comes back around, I need to look at those numbers as well. Same thing with our small suppliers, making sure and tracking that. And it also gives us a good story to come back with our suppliers, because our suppliers really want to push volume. Looking back at some of the large suppliers and even the small suppliers that would come with us with their recommended order, right? Here, this is what we think you should take for this package or this product. You're already
Recommended
smiling.
order.
And we would
I'll
all
give you
look at
a
each other.
I'll give you a
Yeah. And we'd
recommended
go,
order.
how the hell did you come up with this? I
Because
mean,
it
this
meets the
is,
production demand plan.
yeah, this has nothing to do with our territory, our operation.
It meets the
But
production and the split plan they have for next week.
I think so. But yeah, looking at those, because we would cut those every single time. No, I don't think we ever, maybe a couple times, took the recommended, but I also kept track of exactly what we sold, what we brought back, what I had to move around close to code in some of those stores too, to have a good story and actually have some hard data to go back on that supplier when they've pushed me the next time. Hey, you cut that order. We really need you to be here. Hey, here's my hard data from the last rollout or the last launch or the last time I had this product. This is why I came up with my numbers. So a lot of benefits for tracking it in house too.
Yep. And for context, we've talked about this a couple times. Like, I remember our first time we started a tango with really tackling finished product loss at Atlas was like just the seasonal stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the early 2000s when craft was moving and shaking. It's not as problematic now. But the math basically is like if you buy a pallet of seasonals, 56 cases of 4.6s, and you sample off 2 and throw away 7 or throw away 5 for the layer of 7, why, like, you've cut the profitability of that pallet in half.
Yeah.
So you have to be very cautious around how much this can wind up and cost you in terms of that bottom line profit, because yeah, you sold there's 6 layers, right? Or 7 layers in a pallet.
8, 7 times 8.
There it is.
And
Yeah.
a model of 4 or a pallet 4.6. Yeah.
Yeah. So you sold, all but 1 layer and you're excited about that. But bottom line, you've only sold, you cut the profitability in half. And are you generating activity for activity's sake, to continue to quote Steve Jessup? Because we will continue to do that around here.
I
Um,
love that quote. But yeah,
yep.
exactly. And keeping a hard record of that too.
Yep.
With your seasonals. I mean, especially a seasonal that has a date, a specific day, or a holiday tied to it. I was just talking with some clients this week that were they created an exceptional return code. No, they didn't create it, but they used one of their return codes to allow a product to come back in that had loosely holiday graphics on it, right? It was the Clydesdales on a can. So loosely holiday, but still kind of really driven towards a holiday. The product's still good till April, but sales, you know how that in the market, people, consumers, they'll pick around it. Oh, that's old beer. That's from Christmas. I don't want it, even though it is still good. It's still in code. So they said it's okay to return that product back to get it into the stores. I think that they were going to drive it through on premise or something like that. Or bigger package stores, so people weren't picking around them. But yeah, anything that has a specific day, holiday, the day after that, boom, right? Who wants to drink green beer on Tuesday of this week? By the time this comes out, nobody wants to even think about green beer. So
Oh, my God. Too bad that Clydesdale package isn't good until 1st of July, because then you could do halfway to Christmas.
yeah,
And just do a
yeah,
little mini party for halfway to Christmas.
get that Santa fruit.
Speaking of green beer, like, we're gonna be out in the market together drinking some green beer on Monday. So we'll be excited back in the Northeast and New York area. So we're pumped up. The sales manager, Tommy, has us locked and loaded and ready to go. He's like, oh, you're coming in on Monday for St. Patrick's Day? Well, just so you know, we'll be out drinking. It's like,
We're drinking. That's what we're drinking.
buckle up.
Buckle up. As long as, you know, I'm okay with it as long as you're not picking the account we're going to. I think you lost your account picking privileges last year.
Dude, I picked the perfect account. It wasn't my fault that when we drove in, it looked like chaos and there was a woman puking in the parking lot and another one peeing in the woods behind it. I was on point.
You were for beers. Celebration St. Patrick's Day on point, 100%. Grabbing a quick burger on the way to the hotel, probably not.
You were too scared to get out of the car. I had picked the place.
I don't think we could park.
You were too scared. That's on you, not on me. I picked the right place. We'll have to update the crew on how we did this year versus last
year. Yeah.
And these, like, green beer aside, the finished product loss, getting your hands wrapped around this. You know, we see clients when they do that and they start to use this data, typically cut their finished product loss when they're focused on it by 50% in 12 months. So you can get serious and you can clean this stuff up for sure. But what won't be cut more than 50% is Trump tariffs.
Trump tariffs. Second week in a row, we're talking about tariffs.
They are still, I mean, do you not like the political segment? They are still.
No, I do.
They are still on, we believe, still currently. And he has now doubled down and has said 200% tariffs on European alcohol. Bananas.
Yeah. So far, beer is not lumped into this. It's just wine and spirits, right? Or wine and whiskey, bourbon. But yeah,
Your Chianti is going up.
Yeah.
Going up. Chardonnay. You want to celebrate sparkling? You want some little champagne? Going up. It's incredible. I mean, it's clearly a continual, tit for tat. That's probably the right way to say that. And that he's focused on a lot of things. Shares of Heineken and AB have already been down following the announcement. Obviously, Discus doesn't want any tariffs. Most of Discus stuff, I mean, so much of the alcohol drank in this country comes from Canada or the continental Europe as well. So, boom. And the aluminum price or the aluminum tariffs have stuck as well, right, Mikey?
Yeah. As far as I know. So, I mean, it's kind of like a double whammy, right? Where we had last week, we were just talking about the price of aluminum going up. Now we're looking at imports and exports, wine and spirits to tack onto that.
We don't have any real clarity on whether beer is still included in Mexico's and Canada's tariffs either, too, right?
No, I don't know. No. But yeah, it hit the stock market. Shares of Heineken and ABI this morning dropped following the news. So we shall see.
We were doing in Michigan. We were a can deposit state, and I've been watching the aluminum prices, and people are probably pretty happy they didn't book or didn't start to hedge the aluminum price now with the tariff coming.
Yeah.
Let that float up and we'll just see where it goes. It's almost at all-time high. You remember, like, you were operations, it was like $1.20 a pound or $1.17 a pound. It's getting really close to that.
Wow. Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds. I mean, last week's episode just talking about aluminum. Now we're talking about actual product, which is a little scary. Just wine and spirits for now, but who's to say that beer's not to follow? So we will keep a close eye on this for sure.
100%. Well, Mikey, you're going to be at the bar pre-gaming for St. Patrick's Day. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Do you have anything else to impart on the crew?
I don't. Well, you know what? There is something. So my mother-in-law is in town for the St. Patrick's Day celebration, right? And she said, and my wife had also said something. She listens to the episodes. I didn't realize she was a listener, and totally ratted me out on the episode when I forgot to turn the crock pot on.
How was the
So
food?
the food was delicious. It was great. But yeah, I totally got ratted out on that. I did not get away with that. And my wife actually said, "Is that why it was a little dry?" I said, "No, it was a little dry because of the cut of meat it is. It was in a crock pot."
You had me cook it for 8 hours, woman.
Yeah, yep. And she actually took my daughter around to the places for her to dance today. She put the corned beef on the stove and she said, "Will you please take this off at 2:00?" She said, "Wait a minute. Can I trust you?" But at 2:00 exactly, it was off. So the corned beef was not ruined.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, all's well that ends well.
It's all good.
It's that great line from Animals. You fucked up. You trusted me.
Yeah, you fucked.
I love it.
So, yep. Shout out to Mary Ellen for listening. Appreciate you.
Always love the moms out there listening, Leon.
Yep.
So, well, thanks for joining us for another episode on the Tapped In Sales Podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. If you are enjoying this, please listen or continue to listen, like, and subscribe and share with a friend. Mikey, we will be back next week, my man. Cheers.
Yeah. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Cheers.